In this lesson, we're going to start discussing program flow. And this is where we start building intelligence into our applications. This is where we start adding if-then-else statements, where we start adding conditions to test for certain things. We start looping, because these are the things that computers are very, very good at. The first thing we'll discuss are expressions and operators. You need to understand how we start creating these different decision trees, or how we can start calculating our math correctly. You need to understand this. If you don't understand how to create a good formula, your math is going to come out and it might be different than what is really expected. We're then going to discuss decision statements. If then else, select case. These are our true decisions. And then we're going to start going through our iteration statements. Iteration statements are where we start looping, where we will do a loop 10,000 times, or maybe 5 times, or we will loop until a certain condition is met. And then finally, I'm going to show you how to create functions and methods. And those are ways that we can make our application smarter and also easier to read. So, the first thing we need to understand are the different expressions that we have within Visual Basic. The first one that we have is assignment. Now, assignment is also, if you look down at the bottom of this list, we have assignment, which is an equal sign. Well, an equal sign is how we say this variable equals this. So we can assign a value to something. But if you look at the very bottom, it's also one of our comparison operators. So we need to understand that in certain situations, they mean two different things. We also have our mathematical symbols. Our mathematical symbols are pretty straightforward. We have addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and then we have the percent sign. And the percent sign is what's called mod. Now, mod is a very handy mathematical operator that we can use. Mod is different from division. Whereas with division, we can say that I want to take 4 divided by 3. Well, that's going to give us one answer. But if we use mod, mod gives us that remainder. So remember when we were kids and we did division, you would have 24 remainder of 2 or whatever. Well, mod gives us that remainder. It doesn't care what the product is, it cares what the remainder is. It's a very cool feature, and we use it quite a bit in certain situations. We then have our increment and decrement operators. These means they're shortcuts for assignment, or basically it's doing assignment but also doing addition or subtraction at the exact same time. So instead of us saying this variable equals the exact same variable plus 1, we can say variable plus equals 1. And that says, oh, just take that variable and add 1 to it. Or minus equals, and that says subtract 1 from it. So these are just a couple shorthand notations for us. And then we have comparison. Our comparisons are how we do our decisions. Does something equal? Does it not equal? Is it greater than? Is it greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to? So these are all different comparison operators that we can use. And they're all pretty straightforward. I mean, we've used them, you've probably used them in other applications, but this is just to give you kind of an idea of what we're dealing with here. Now, with a mathematical expression, it's all pretty straightforward initially. So right here are a couple examples. So you can say our variable equals. So we're using our assignment operator, which is equals. It equals, and then inside of parentheses we have 15 plus 15. So that's addition, so it equals 30. The next one is 75 minus 25, so it's 50. So these are all examples of how we can use each one of these. Notice at the very bottom, the 5 mod 2, that gives us 1. So a lot of people think, well, if 5 divided by 2, that's going to be 2. No, that's 2 with a remainder of 1. And so it's giving us that remainder. It's a very handy. There are only certain situations where you're going to use it, but when you need it, there you have it. So now, when we're doing mathematics, we need to understand the expression rules. And this is the order of precedent. This is the order that the compiler is going to use to calculate any end result. And this was a standard that was created many years ago. They had to come up with some type of a standard, because if they didn't, you could put in the exact same formula, and if they didn't have the standard, different operating systems could give a different result. So they came up with this. So the shorthand for this is called PEMDAS. And PEMDAS is an acronym that says parentheses, exponent, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. The way that most people remember this is you say, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So P for please is parentheses, so anything done inside of parentheses is always done first. Excuse or exponent, so anything with say 5 squared or 4 cubed, that's the next thing that's going to get done. Then you have multiplication, then division, addition, and then finally subtraction. So this is the order of precedence. This is how all mathematical equations are going to get done. So if you have something in parentheses, that will always be the very first thing that gets calculated. Then if you have something that multiplies, you'll get that next, or that will be done before any addition or subtraction. So if you always remember PEMDAS, or please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, you'll remember this. Parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. So the last thing I want to talk about is our increment and decrement operators. Right here, like I said before, it's just a shorthand. So if we had a statement, I value equals I value plus 5. Well, the shorthand using our increment and decrement is just I value plus equals 5. So you're literally saying, okay, this variable equals whatever it equals, but add 5 to it. And consequently, we have the minus equals, which is subtract 5 from it. And that could be any number you want. You could say 400. So you could say I value plus equals 400. It's going to add 400 to it. So the thing I want to point out to you is the order of precedence and all the different operators we have. Let's go ahead and open up an example. I've already opened up the mathematical expressions project, and I did this because this is a perfect example of where we use a lot of our different mathematical operators, but it can give us 2 different results. So here's what I mean. I've created a bunch of variables up here, dnum through d4, and then my d result, and I have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So they're all doubles. And the reason I made them doubles is just so you know that we could always get a fraction if we want to. We already know that Visual Basic will automatically take an integer, those are all integer values, and it would convert that over to a floating point if it needed to. But I just like to keep it that way. It makes it run a little bit better. So now my d result. So the very first one, I say dnum1 plus dnum2 divided by dnum3 times dnum4. So this is my equation, and it's all inside of parentheses. And then it's a simple math. I have my line feed, and then I'm showing each one. I'm showing the whole thing again, and then I want to see my d result right here. But then I'm using the exact same order and the exact same values, but I'm putting parentheses in there, and we're going to see how it's going to change. So I have dnum1 plus dnum2 divided by dnum3 times dnum4. But because I have parentheses in different locations, now it's going to do the math a little bit different. So now when I run this, if I press F5, my first one says 1 plus 2 divided by 3 times 4 equals 3.66666 all the way to 7. But what I really wanted was 0.25. And so literally by placing those parentheses in there, it drastically changes the end result. So you must understand PEMDAS. If you don't understand PEMDAS, go back and watch this again, because that is going to dictate how your calculations are done. Now, if any of you have ever used Microsoft Excel, you're already going to know PEMDAS pretty well, because it's the exact same thing. All computers calculate this way. It's all the same. It's an international standard. Nobody deviates from it because nobody wants their math messed up. So This is how we can start working with this. Now what we're going to do is we're going to build on this, and we're going to start using our decision operators. And this is where we're going to really start having some fun, because this is where we start making our applications smarter.